So who is here for the critical minerals panel? People have been saying, Michael, when is the panel? The panel is now. So please stay with me, stay with me. As I said, we've got a critical minerals panel, how to invest in mining, the challenges while building local processing facilities on Ghanaian soil. To lead this conversation, we've got, I have to say, a personal friend, because I've known him for a very long time. He's a senior partner and co-founder of AB and David Africa, a leading Pan-African business law firm, one of Ghana's foremost corporate and commercial lawyers. Please have attention in the room. Shh. You can WhatsApp each other in silence. It's okay. Just communicate through texting. It's okay. He's an advisor to governments, multinational corporations, and a strong advocate for Africa-focused economic growth. Please welcome to the stage, Dr. David Ofosu-Dorte. Please also welcome to the stage, we have CEO of Minerals Commission Ghana, Isaac A. Tandoh. Please welcome to the stage. And please welcome to the stage, Michael Akafia, Vice President of External Affairs, Goldfields, and President of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. Please welcome to the stage, Michael, my namesake. Microphones are on the chairs. Have a fruitful conversation.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is what they call the graveyard shift. Yeah, but we will make the best of it. Very often you hear people when they give speeches during Africa investment conferences and things like this, and they will talk about Africa has got X percentage of mineral deposits of the world, etc., etc. But many of the countries are still poor. And at times it sounds like an oxymoron. How can you be resource rich but poor? But that's the reality. So this session, which is supposed to be part of the critical minerals session, is dealing with something beyond the critical minerals, which is unlocking Ghana's mineral wealth for sustainable growth and resource sovereignty. The last part we will deal with. But I have a two-member panel here, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves, and we will get going over the next 30 minutes. First, to my immediate left, Isaac.
Yes, my name is Isaac Tandoh, CEO for Minerals Commission. Minerals Commission is responsible for the resource management of the nation. We technically advise the minister on the way forward. We are responsible for the Mother Act 703 and also the 9 regulations in which the mining companies or the mining fraternity deals with. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael.
Thank you. My name is Michael Edem, Akafia. I represent Goldfields and External Affairs.
Microphone, yeah.
Hello? Okay, it's better. So I represent Goldfields. Goldfields, our purpose is enduring value beyond mining, and I represent also the Ghana Chamber of Mines, which is the main industry association for mining in Ghana. Thank you.
Since you are wearing 2 caps, let me start with you, Michael. Goldfields have been in the business of gold in Ghana for a very long while. What has changed over the period, and what makes Ghana's sector more competitive as compared to others? What will you say if somebody asks you a simple question who wants to invest in Ghana's mineral sector?
Yeah, I think maybe just to take you through a bit of the journey and why we are where we are. The key thing to point out is that Ghana is not the leading gold producer in Africa by accident. It was by virtue of legislation and also introduction of policies which attracted investments into the sector. Because if you take your mind back, before 1986, the total production for Ghana had slumped. In fact, 1983, the entirety of the country produced 213,000 ounces, which today is what a medium-sized mining company in Ghana will produce. And so the 1985 reforms, the PNC Law 153, introduced a bundle of incentives to attract the likes of Goldfields, Newmont, and Anglo Gold into the sector, who then brought badly and urgently needed capital to sort of rejuvenate the industry. So I think it's important to bear that in mind in terms of, especially because we are on an investment platform, to appreciate how we got where we got to. Now, if you look at it and track it from the Goldfields perspective, given the question that you asked, what is now Goldfields Takwa Mine used to be the state gold mine in Takwa Mine. At the time, because the state's lack of capacity to invest in growing the resource, the production slumped to around, in 1982, around 24,000, just 24,000 ounces. Now this has, through Goldfields investments, more than increased several folds. Today we do about an average of 500,000 ounces from that era of the 24,000 ounces. And so one of the things that you see would have changed is also the introduction of, over time, local content. And the reason why that is important touches on the point you made earlier. How do we unlock the value to ensure that the resource benefits the people, so that we can maximize the benefits such that people can see the transformation that they need to see in the economic life. So local content was one of the things that happened in terms of legislation. But you would find that responsible, sustainable miners, especially those in the Ghana Chamber of Mines, well ahead of the introduction of local content, saw the need to do value retention. And so to give you a few practical examples will suffice in terms of how that has practically happened. Before it became a requirement of local content that we should contract fuel companies, Ghanaian-owned fuel companies, a mining company, Goldfields, contracted Zen Petroleum, which was mentioned in some of the earlier presentations as one which has grown to the point where it has listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. It developed to the point where not only is it investing in Ghana, because it has contract with not just Goldfields. On the back of the Goldfields contract, it got a Newmont contract and subsequently became a multinational, investing in Mali and countries like that. That's one example. A power company, another one who will suffice, will be a power company called Genza, which over time, because on the back of the Goldfields contract, has been able to not just turn its story around, but also build a 300 megawatt power plant in Côte d'Ivoire just next door, but also interestingly built a gas processing plant in Ghana. And also built a pipeline from our Etoabo gas processing enclave to Kumasi. That's a private sector entity. And so we believe that what must change in terms of how we ensure that the minerals benefit the people is to unlock the value along the entire value chain, so that we can deepen investments across the entire value chain.
Okay, I'm coming to you, Isaac, but just to let the audience know, I will be taking questions from the audience right after he speaks. So get your questions ready. I want you to get involved right from the start. Now, coming to you, and it's a double-edged question. First, picking from where Michael left off regarding what has changed to make us more competitive. Key coming from the private sector is essentially confirming we become more competitive. So you as a regulator, I'm sure you will affirm that. What can you add to that? And the other part of the question is, Ghana is known for gold. In terms of critical minerals, what are the critical minerals we have, and what is the status of policy regulation in that investors should be looking at?
Yeah, thank you, David. So what I would want to add is the solid regulatory framework that we have in the country and the stable political environment. That adds up. If you want to take your money somewhere, you want to take your money where there is stability and there is rule of law. That is where you would want to take your money. So these are the things that are adding to more multinational companies that are coming into the country. Now, talking about the critical mineral, it's been a known fact that Ghana is not only endowed with gold. We've got gold, we've got bauxite, we've got manganese, we've got diamond, we've got graphite, tantalum, columbite, we've got nickel, and recently the discovery of the iron ore. So all these critical minerals are available in our country. And with the new green energy transition, I mean, it's about time that as a country, we revive this to the full beneficiation of the people of Ghana.
But what will you say that the Minerals Commission or the regulator is doing to boost investor confidence? And when I say investor, I'm not necessarily referring to investors from outside, including local investors as well, to boost their confidence to invest in the sector. And don't let's sweep anything under the carpet. After political changes every time, contracts are terminated, etc., there is a general feeling that there is stability politically, but at times lack of continuity business-wise. Is that still the case? What has changed? How do you make them confident?
So talking about that, I'm not sure that applies to our industry.
Okay.
Because we've had contracts that have panned Like the Zain thing he spoke about has gone through a couple of changes of government, and it still went on to grow. So when we talk about that, I don't think it's really, I think there is more stability in that sector than any other sector in Ghana. The other one we are doing as a regulator is reforming our laws to be investor friendly. For instance, issues of rectification was a big deal in Ghana. Now the new law is forcing the minister to get any lease that has been granted rectified within 60 days. We are reforming the licensing regime. We are digitalizing everything from A to Z, removing human interference. So you can, be anywhere in the world and apply for your license, and at any point in time, you can go online and see the progress. All this we are doing to try and ensure. And on the side of the communities, we've introduced what we call the Community Development Agreement as part of the lease for the mining companies. So by the time your lease is up, whatever you agree with the community, we will tick the boxes to ensure that whether we have to give you lease or not.
Any hand up already with a question in the mining sector? Okay, so he should be getting the microphone, but before he comes in, so I wanted to identify a questioner from the audience, but I'm going back to Michael, so you take the next question before. We cannot talk about the mineral sector without talking about Galamsey. Yes, and I like to address the elephant in the room. So to what extent will you say that it is a menace that threatens investors in the mining sector? And what do you view from a private sector perspective as the antidote to ensure that investors still come to the sector, notwithstanding that general view?
Thank you very much. But David, with your permission, I just sort of want to touch a bit on the point.
And then you come to my question.
I'll come to your question soon thereafter. It's true that we've been working in partnership with government as part of government's effort to, as they call it, overhaul the law. There's been a lot of consultations that we must admit. There were concerns that the industry had, and it had to do with security of tenure and so on. And thankfully, through those engagements, there's been some shift. We are hoping that there'll be further engagements, especially as a bill has now been laid, the amendment bill that he talked to has been laid before Parliament. We'll get the Parliamentary Select Committee, but there was some anxiety around security of tenure. And thankfully, with the likes of Goldfields, President Newmont, and other members of the chamber, we believe that in direct collaboration with the public sector, with the minister and our sector ministry, we can improve.
I don't intend to interject, but for some people,
improve the environment.
Some people, no, you will still continue, but I need to chip in this. For some people, there's a difference between security of tenure and issue of renewal. Are they the same?
Good question, and a very, very important question. I think
because of where you come from.
Thankfully, I know you're a lawyer because I'm a lawyer. We know that the law is designed to ensure security of tenure, even as regards renewal. Because if you look at the provisions of the law, 44.3, it says when the mineral rights holder has met the material conditions of his mineral rights, then the minister shall, unlike a usual renewals in other provisions. So it is, and it's there by design. It's not by accident. There are other provisions in the law that is supposed to signal to investors. Because if you think about it, if you didn't assure security of tenure at the point of renewal, mining companies usually must do what we call the mineral rights area, like investment exploration. You must be doing that to extend the life. You must be exploring as the same time that you're mining to extend the life. If you're not assured of that security of tenure, that investment is not likely to happen. Okay. The other point related to that, mining is capital intensive, risky, and long term in nature, and it's very well known. If you benchmark and compare us to other jurisdictions, you will see that mature mining jurisdictions such as ours have similar provisions in terms of that renewal. And the thing about it is that sometimes you find that the resource is at an not near any urban center or near infrastructure or access to anything. Mineral rights holders must undertake huge capital outlays. It takes like between 15 to 20 years to develop a project from, say, greenfield to brownfield. Look at that amount of time. If, for instance, you invested in a power plant to make that place viable, the mineral resource viable, what you must be assured of is that capital that you've deployed Once you've done work to extend the life of the mine, if you apply, you'll get the extension that you need. Now, back to your question about ASA.
Yeah, and make it short so I can
I'll
go
keep it
to
short.
that. Yeah.
It's absolutely critical for us because we believe that it has existential implications for our industry. And that is why the Ghana Chamber of Mines leading that, has embarked on a process to engage government. You know, government has this project by which it's introducing cooperative mining. And through that, they've made requests to mining companies to relinquish land. What we've said to ourselves is that we'll not relinquish lands for the formalization, because formalization has been said to be one of the most potent ways, World Gold Council, of resolving galamsey, like you said. So we are working collaboratively with government to ensure that we don't only cede land for its own sake, but that we put in place mechanisms, working in collaboration with partners like the World Gold Council, where we can use, say, for instance, a processing plant, a model processing plant, to be the center of attraction to get those who would otherwise engage in illegal mining to submit to regulation. And we'll provide incentives, including a one-stop shop process for permitting, so that they would have that incentive to move away from the river bodies, to have that incentive to move away from the protected forest reserves, to come to those model processing centers, so that becomes a fulcrum around which we can formalize. That process is underway. The other part of it, and you pointed to the fact that that is a threat to investment. Some of our members, now speaking where my Chamber of Mines had, feel that they are threatened. There's a particular member who has a particular mineral rights, and the place has been invaded by galamseyers, and yet it pays the fees, the requisite fees in relation to that area. Thankfully, we signed an MOU with the Ghana Armed Forces and with the cooperation of the late defense minister. And so there's been some deployment of some security personnel to sort of protect some of these things. We believe that some of those measures can help sort of address this issue. But I think one key point to point out, though, is one of the things we're doing is learning from other countries. What is interesting for us is that when you look at Latin America, Peru has a galamsey problem or illegal mining problem, but just next door in Chile, they don't. And the reason is simple. It has to do with the ability to trace. We are happy that government itself, through the Gold Board, is trying to put in place a trace.
Okay.
Well, part of the things are tied to it is that it's not just a tracing mechanism, but it's a whole system, such that in a place like Chile, if you're ever to engage in illegal mining, you find that the financial system will shut out to you. Okay. There's no way you can really transact. And that will be one of the ways in which we can sort of address that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from the audience. Yes, you have the microphone. Just go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Rogers. I'm a co-CEO and co-founder of a company called Pharmadyne. But actually, I want to sort of focus very specifically on the logistics.
On the what?
Logistics.
Okay. And who is your question to? Please keep
Actually,
it short.
it's for all three of you. I'm wondering if you could, if you could help me out for a moment, just humor me. If you can imagine, obviously, the idea is for extraction. I came up with a project whereby we would be able to use those same logistics corridors instead of just for purely extraction, but also for providing pharmaceutical product and any emergency equipment to come in through the same logistical corridors. But the trouble that I'm facing with some countries is convincing the mining companies to get on board, because they also need the government to be on board as well. However, this will drop costs, and this would actually lower your insurance premiums for the mining companies. Do you think that this would be a problem for a country like Ghana to be on board with this project?
Okay, that sounds more like a question that relates to advertising a specific company. But I can tell you for a fact that Ghana is trying to become not just an investment hub, but a logistics hub as well. I've seen Tandoh here from the 24-hour secretariat. I'm aware about using the water corridor as part of the logistics corridor. I think they are working with GIF and the rest in that. And I'm aware of some mining chains, value chains, which are likely to be along the corridor. So yes, definitely that's a kind of project that, if well done, Ghana should be interested in. But let me go to Isaac, because that question actually relates to the question I was going to ask you. And if there's any other question out there, get ready. Now, there are some large deposits of minerals where there is really no infrastructure to access it. And let me give you an example. Nyinahini, as an example, you have the bauxite somewhere 78 kilometers from the nearest rail line. To what extent is the regulator working with government and other allied agencies to ensure that you get infrastructure to these places in order to be able to, as it were, grow that mineral wealth instead of living as it, the opportunity is one thing, but being able to access and leverage is another, and create a whole logistics corridor as he's talking about.
Sure, thanks. And Dave, that is exactly what I think the current government is doing. If you look at the sector for Dr. Tandoh, the 24-hour economy, the commission is working with the Ghana Railway Development Authority. We're working with Gold Board to try and work through some of this infrastructure. You know, the president has given us a deadline that by 2030, we shouldn't export anything raw. And we are tying in all these things to make sure that we have access to these places.
Again, just to interject, I'm aware about the present deadline. It would be helpful if you mention along that exactly where we are on that, because if you look at the law for GIADEC, and I had the privilege of writing that law, so I know what I'm talking about. The deadline was 2023, which we did not implement, and the current president has now given us a deadline. That was the previous government. What exactly is being done to ensure that this?
So, first of all, we have moved ahead to sign off leases to GIADEC, which they didn't have, because you need to get the lease to enable you access funding. They have signed a couple of MOUs with multinational companies, and we are working through to make sure that bauxite from Awaso is connected to Vaco in Tema, which we are busily working. So it's not one-sided, it's about 4 legs, and all the legs are being tackled at the same time. So it's not like GIADEC is there for many, many years and nothing has happened. For now, they've got 4 leases that is going to Parliament for ratification. This gives them the power to access any financing in the world for any infrastructure development that we need to do.
I was wondering whether the very idea about GIADEC as an example, and as well as GISDEC, with where the iron ore is deposited in the Akafia Hills and OT region, creates an opportunity relating to mining, but not necessarily the mining, of infrastructure in PPP. That's really my question. So that somebody else is doing the power plant like Gensa, somebody is doing the rail line, but this requires not necessarily GIADEC, but the likes of GIF, so that the other investors in this room, that's the kind of...
Yes, so that is exactly what is happening. If you take the lithium, for example, I mean, MAFE invested some $5 million in there. They've got another 27 million equity that they can still, and we've still got option to even increase our stake. We are working with B5 Plus, the producers of the steel ball, on the Zormelo iron ore drilling. Well, in fact, we are very close in closing that deal. And we've got a couple of options. There is another company that is doing analysis on the Volta Lake to see whether we can use a barge to bring this material to Temaport. We are also assessing the railway line, and we are also working on alternative route as well. So it's not in isolation. They are all boxed together with different segments being handled by different investment portfolios.
I'm happy you are mentioning it, because I want other investors other people to know that the investment may not necessarily just be in the ore. Yes, there's another hand up. Can you send the microphone?
Yes, David, if you don't mind me adding, just to the point he was making.
Keep it very snap. I've called the other questioner.
Very well.
Yeah.
Well, just to point out that the Ghana Chamber of Mines commissioned a mining hub study, and we commissioned an entity to do that, and they conducted that. It was meant to look at the entire value chain and look at things from the project perspective, where you're looking at things from end to end. And that's where some of your points about PPP infrastructure comes in. There's one other point related to the National Supplies Development Project. And with that, our aim is to retain more value along the value chain. So we're looking at products that feed the mining industry. So for instance, there are things we're calling low-hanging fruits that we're working on unlocking, so that it doesn't become, and that's how we believe the transformation that we need to see in the industry.
Okay, Michael, I will take that question, but among other things, it's meant to give you a couple of minutes of breath, because I'm told that multinationals like you don't like paying local content persons, and you rather bring your suppliers from outside. But catch your breath on that. Where is the question?
It's right here.
Yes,
Hi.
please go ahead.
I'm Kojo Jemfi. I'm founder of MMC, a mining mineral service provision company. Now, my question is, what's the Commission doing to help Ghanaian investors identify and access investment-ready mineral resources? Now, the reason I ask that is we're working on putting together a caustic soda production plan. We're on the proposal. Now, in the due diligence we're doing, we realized that the salt deposits, the areas that we are aware of, are heavily in litigations and all sorts of issues, and it's been difficult to access a place to plant this production plant. Have you got any resources ready that we can tap into and take advantage of?
Okay.
Sure. Thank
Over to you.
I mean, when I was speaking earlier, I started with the reforms of the licensing regime because we are aware of this particular issue. And a lot of these issues are being resolved to make sure that the investor who has put his money into a particular concession gets access to the concession. And the law is clear that when there is a mineral in there, we would have to exploit that mineral for the benefit of the people. So that is why when it comes to those projects, the government can step in to say, this project would happen. We would support the investor to ensure that the project happen. In fact, I have personally, together with the minister, have been to a lot of places that had litigation and we got those issues resolved. Because the mineral is of national interest. It's the nation first before anybody who claims the access to it. The other things we've done, and to top up with what Michael is trying, we are working very closely with the chamber. We recently launched the grinding media standards, and we've done a lot of experiments for activated carbons. We are working very, very, very closely to ensure that at least the local investor has some opportunities. I have recently invited most of the banks in Ghana to talk about funding for some of these projects.
I think his question, even though you're answering it, I think we are not going to the core of it. And let me illustrate as an example. I can guess where he's coming from. Yes, if we talk about bauxite, just bauxite alone, there's a linkage to bauxite as part of fertilizer production. It's linkage to salt to be able to produce caustic soda, chlorine, and even shrimps. The question he's asking, if I understand him well, is that if I identified a particular bankable project, viable, investable project, this is at the end of the chain, how can I come to Minerals Commission and know that we are doing this, we've gotten to this stage, and we want you to start producing caustic soda because the industry will need it? It's not just the land issue.
Okay.
It's about other opportunities. We create the multiplier effect.
Yeah, great. So, for instance, if you take the lithium.
I hope I got you.
If you take the lithium, there is a component the ceramic companies need to continue with their production. And yes, even though it's a byproduct of the licensee, it's also an important product to the nation. So if you look at some of the mines that have waste and they are burying them, no, we are turning back to make sure, turn them into quarries to build our roads, to build our railways, to build our civil engineering infrastructure. So it's something that we are looking at the total value. We wouldn't allow it just because you are the leaseholder. If there is something that is of interest to the nation, we are asking the large-scale companies to tell us what has been happening to the silver component and all that byproduct that they've been shipping away. For many, many years, we've asked them to account for it. So these are the things we are looking at. Now, it's no longer the interest of just the licensee. It's whatever is available in there that has some implication, some good implication or some development implication to the nation. We are interested in that as well.
Thank you, Michael. I'll come to you. Remember, you had a hangover question, which is whether you are bringing your suppliers from outside and ignoring local suppliers. We are talking about sustainability. So, but added to that question, let me just add one. You are in gold. Are you looking at the other kind of minerals, especially critical minerals in Ghana, I mean, in the long term. So let's put the two together.
Okay, thank you very much. But then just to touch on the silver that he mentioned, thankfully, there's a national assay program that he knows and is aware of.
I hope you've not been shipping some of the silver
No,
away.
that's what I'm saying. There's no question whatsoever. There's almost like a triple check process, such that the accountability issue is not even an issue.
Okay, the governor is here, so you have to be careful.
Because he knows that we have a customs rep in our gold room. Not only that, we have a gold board rep in our gold room. It used to be PMC under the National Assay Program. In fact, for the mining companies, typically for us, our interest is not so much in what happens after the gold room, because you would find that the offtake arrangements that we have with our miners is such that property risk and title, property risk and title in the gold transfers to the off-taker when the gold leaves the gold room. And so there's even a third-party independent, say, usually it's SGS. They have an assay lab in situ near where our mine sites are, who do actual additional verification, so that such that there's reconciliation possible, so that there's no issue of possible loss of minerals. So in terms of diversification and looking at other minerals, obviously from the chamber perspective, that's one of the things that we seek to do, because we seek to represent all miners. And so Ghana Manganese is our member, Ghana Manganese and Ghana Bauxite is our member.
No, my question was to you as Goldfields. Yes.
Well, so
or you cannot answer for the chief executive.
Typically, mining companies like to be specialists in what they know.
But you have assets all over the world. Are your assets only gold?
You're right. We have assets in
Australia.
10, essentially 9 assets in a project, right? And so Chile and all over the world. Typically, because we say we're a gold mining company, and that's what Goldfields has been doing for more than 100 years, that's one thing that we know too well. You don't want to branch off into areas, even though at the broad strategic level, there's consideration for diversification if need be. But copper, because Chile is such a copper company, we have an asset in copper, it's one of those that has come up. So obviously, those are one of the things that we've been looking at. Now, in terms of your question, I think it's a very important question to address in terms of the perception out there. Yeah. I mean, it's not true, and when it comes to large-scale mining companies, that we look to bring, or at least as of today, and it's important because most of us are listed companies and we subscribe to what's called the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And that's particularly important because these days investors are themselves looking to make sure that you are truly compliant, because if you are not compliant, then you have a risk and their investments will be at risk, you see. And so to that extent, once we sign up to those ESG commitments, it requires for us to put in the best compliance measures in place. Now, beyond the compliance measures, there's an issue when it comes to local content. There's an issue of ESG commitments which require us to retain value in country. And so what is happening these days is the mining companies, not only are we tracking value retention, we are tracking what we call host community procurement, such that what we say is that it's not even enough to do in-country procurement. What you want to do is to impact the communities, because that's where you need transformation to happen, because that's you must live in harmony with your host communities, because we say that our social license is our most important license. It's more important to us than our EPA and Minerals Commission licenses, because you must live in harmony with your community. And so because of that, we track host community procurement and are trying to improve that over time on a quarterly basis. And we want to do it in a meaningful and impactful way, rather than just nominally increasing the spend in local countries. One of the ways in which we are trying to close the loop in that regard is that we have corporate social responsibility vehicles like our foundations and so on. And one of its objects is enterprise development. We want to tie that back into that value creation that we are talking about and value retention that we are talking about, so that that's how come we can, even speaking as Goldfields now, can tout our credentials in when it comes to local content, because before things became a requirement in the law, we were fully compliant. Before it became a requirement to award contracts to contract mining, Ghanaian-owned contract mining company.
Okay.
Goldfields had done that, on 2 of our mine sites. And we did it for power, we did it for fuel. And so if these are the big ticket things and we've done that, you can be sure that we've done it for
I've been told to wrap up. There's one important question, and if you can keep it in 30 seconds for me. Do you think Mincom and GOG should be spending, and this question is to you, should be spending some amount of money to do JOC certification, if possible, to verify the minerals we have under the earth? even before investors come in? Because do we really know what we have?
Yes, I mean, as a country,
It's a tough question, right?
No, as a country, the truth is we should have gone ahead to do some of these things, and that would have given us power for better negotiation. That wasn't done for many years ago, but we've started from somewhere.
In the research, you should be doing
in the
that.
research, we've started. For instance, MENCOM together with the Gold Board have contracted geological survey in drilling some of the areas for the small scale and the cooperative scheme. And then the seeding off on some of the large scale concession. In fact, some have been generous to drill them before they give they give them to us. Asonko is one, AGA is one of them. I think Goldfields gave us an area they are yet to drill. So yes, as a country, in order for us to have a proper bargaining power, we should have drilled the whole country and making sure that we know what is there. That would have helped out to negotiate better. But we've started doing something.
Thank you very much. This section reminds me of a short story I have to tell you before I go. This is the case of a speaker who was at the last speaker at a session like this. And by the time he finished speaking, only one person was left in the room. And he decided to thank the person graciously for being such a gentleman and waited for him. And he said, actually, I brought the sound equipment and I was waiting to take it away. I am very grateful that you've waited up to the end of this session, and I want you to put your hands together for my panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Ofosu-Dorte is one of my favorite moderators because he will not let you get away from the question. He will say, we have not got the full answer, let's dig deeper.